Hi everybody, welcome to 2 Off the First. It is August the 14th, 2023. Ryan Ballinger, great to have you here with us. It's been a little while. I'm actually on vacation here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, visiting some family. So if you're watching the video version, a little bit different background than normal, not the usual office. But we're going to have a great show regardless. We are leaving for Ireland in 16 days with our friends in Club Choice Ireland. Was just looking at the itinerary this afternoon, doing my Google searches and reviews and trying to figure out where we're going and what it's all going to look like and where we're actually going to be. I'd like to tend to wait until get really close toward a trip to kind of look at this type of stuff, especially when an itinerary is made for you. Club Choice Ireland did a great job. We're going to play 6 golf courses. We're going to have a lovely time. We'll share it all for you on our socials at Golf Newsnet and at Ryan Ballinger, clubchoiceireland.com for all the details. If you want to get your own bespoke trip, or if you want to be part of a group adventure, or you want to take a buddy trip with a group of friends, they will do everything for you. Tiernan and the gang at Club Choice Ireland are fantastic. We're going to have them on a version of the 19th Hole Golf Show to talk about the trip, along with my buddy Brendan Sweeney, who's going to be going on the adventure with us. So stay tuned for that soon enough. Also, I want you to check out Swannies, our friends who are outfitting us this year on the 19th Hole Golf Show, as well as this show, 2 Off the First, and all the videos that we're doing. You'll see us in Swannies gear. They've just come out with some great t-shirt hoodies. Their hoodies are fantastic. I wear them pretty much all the time, except down here it has been quite hot, so no hoodies down here in Myrtle Beach, but certainly back at home. And I love their polos. They feel great. They're made from Reprieve recycled fabric, recycled material, so you feel like you're doing something good for the environment. Looks great, feels great, and that leads to better scores, frankly. So check them out, swannies.co. If you use the promo code GolfNewsNet25, you're going to save 25% off your order, whatever you order. Just a great deal. The stuff's already really priced very reasonably, but saving 25% is saving 25%. So swannies.co, promo code GolfNewsNet25. Okay, 2 stories today. A little bit of a wrap-up version of the show. We've got some outcomes to talk about, right, tournament-wise, between the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour. And then I want to touch a little bit on scheduling, since we've never done a show on the 2024 PGA Tour schedule. But also, we have now the 2023-2024 DP World Tour schedule. And they kind of dovetail together in a way, so I think it's really worth talking about them together, even though we're a little behind on the PGA Tour schedule. So let's start major results of the week. Let's start with the event that finished first, which is the AIG Women's Open. Lilia Vu is now a 2-time major winner, and she absolutely cruised on Sunday. After very shaky starts by the 4 or 5 players that really had a chance to win at Walton Heath, she established a lead, got it to 2, then to 3, and really never let it go. I mean, it was very much a professional precision job to win a major championship. She had a great final round. She winds up winning by 6 over Charlie Hall, won 14 under total, 274. She is now, again, as I said, a 2-time major winner this year. She won the first major of the year, the Chevron. She wins the last major of the year, the AIG Women's Open. She now has 3 wins on the year. She won the Honda LPGA Thailand to really jumpstart her season in February. She is now the number 1 player in the Rolex rankings. She has gone from a player who really 4 years ago was in doubt as to whether she could cut it as a professional. And then in 2021, goes back down to the Epson Tour, wins 3 times in a season, gets promoted to the LPGA, comes up to the LPGA in 2022, gets 8 top 10 finishes in a year, clearly establishes with herself that she can play on this tour and be a great golfer. Wins in February, wins the Chevron in the playoff over Angel Yin. Angel Yin was a contender again yesterday, by the way. She had a tough day at Walton Heath in the final round, but a good year for her in the majors. And then she runs away with another major championship, and now she goes to number 1 in the world. What an incredible rocket ship of a few years. And I'm sure it didn't feel that way, right? As a golfer, I'm sure every shot kind of feels like, all right, where are we going? What's happening? I mean, there's a lot of time to contemplate in golf. And I thought it was really interesting that Lilia Vu was asked after she had won, kind of about putting this win into perspective, what it means to have won 2 majors in a year. And by the way, she finds herself in some really fascinating company because she is the 3rd player in LPGA history to have won multiple majors in a year after entering the year with no wins on the tour. That's a stat courtesy of Justin Ray, who does great stuff for Action Network, does his own stuff, I think 15th Club as well, but great golf historian, statistician kind of guy. must follow if you're into that kind of thing. But Lilia Vu gave an interesting answer in that she said she thought that her initial wins this year in Thailand and then the major championship at the Chevron were flukes. She was not of the same belief of maybe a lot of us as golf observers, as people watch golf, people watch the LPGA, that she's the real deal, that she could be a contender for years to come. She could be a top-ranked player for years to come. She was sitting at 6th in the world. There were so many players this week that could have gotten to number 1 in the world had they won. And she was one of them. And yet still, it took encouragement from friends and family and her team or coaches, different people, to convince her that she wasn't a fluke, that she was a worthy champion, that she had all of the tools to be a best player in the world, not only for a year, but for a long time to come. And obviously she displayed a lot of those on Sunday. She hits plenty long. I mean, Charlie Hall whips after the ball. It's really fun to watch her try to go after drives. And Lilia Vu was consistently with her or past her on tee shots, just hitting smooth shots in the fairway, giving herself opportunities, not making mistakes. She did the kinds of things that a dominant leading player does in a professional golf tournament. When you know you've got the win and all you've got to do is not make mistakes. She didn't make mistakes and she grew her lead and capped it off with a tremendous putt that I think even surprised her a little bit. But how messed up is this game at a professional level when you've won twice in a year, you've won 5 times in the last 3 years, you have countless top 10 finishes between your wins and your first season, full season on the LPGA in 2022, and yet you still think winning twice in a year makes you a fraud, that you're not a legitimate champion. And I think part of that was, and she mentioned this after the fact, that not the interview at the trophy presentation, but the press conference after, where she said she played so poorly at the U.S. Women's Open, she just felt like she was not herself, that she wasn't playing like herself, and that maybe the pinnacle of her career was those few months in February and April, and that was it. She said that could have been her career. That's what she thought. And now she is a multi-time major champion, and she's number 1 in the world. So this sport's kind of messed up in that regard. I mean, it'll make you think some crazy things out there. And yet still, she found a way to kind of push through that, got herself into the situation, everything kicked into overdrive. She won the golf tournament running away. She's an incredible player. And looking forward to seeing her in really about a month in the Solheim Cup. We're heading over to Spain to cover that. We'll be there at, I think, at Cortesine and Malaga. So looking forward to that. You'll be seeing different kinds of backgrounds on this show, hopefully from our hotel room, but also from the venue itself. So looking forward to that, seeing her as part of that team, which is starting to take shape here, obviously just a few weeks away from putting everybody together, that dozen for both sides, and getting ready to go over to Spain for that. Then, on the other side of the pond, and happening later because of a weather delay and also time zones, PGA Tour's playoffs got underway at the FedEx St. Jude Championship in stifling Memphis. I mean, I'm in Myrtle Beach this week. The heat index today is like 115. Like you go outside for 5 minutes and you want to be done. Yesterday it was about 105, which is pretty similar to what it was in Memphis. I mean, very, very difficult conditions in which to play golf. I don't care whether you're playing for $3.6 million or not, whatever that means. But that was a grind. And you could see it in Lucas Glover's pants. But he also wound up winning for the second time in as many weeks and goes from a guy that's 43 years old, well outside the playoffs, 112 going into the Wyndham Championship in a must-win situation, basically must-win, to get into the playoffs, wins, gets into the playoffs, wins again. He was 49th going into the week, so he had at least a decent chance of getting into this week's stage, the BMW Championship, but goes and wins. Now he's top 5 in the FedEx Cup. He's guaranteed a spot in the Tour Championship, guaranteed $500,000, guaranteed a spot in all 4 major championships next year. He's 30th in the world. He's got a very good chance to be on the Ryder Cup team. And again, another Justin Ray special, but there's only been one guy in recent memory, really in the history of the world ranking that we know it, that didn't play in any of the 4 majors in the calendar year, but still made the Ryder Cup team. And that's Jose Maria Olazabal is the other from, 1989. That's really more of an injury thing, I think, than anything else. But Lucas Glover didn't play in any of the majors, and now he's in all 4 of them. He's in the top 30 in the world, at least. I mean, he can only stand to move up from here, really. He doesn't have a whole lot of points behind him, so anything he picks up is going to be good for him. And, I mean, he's played against fields of 156 and 70, right? So he's played 226 total players, take himself out twice. He has beaten 224 players in the last 2 weeks. That is an incredible run for a guy who, at his depth, was, I think, 158th in the world. He missed the cut at Memorial, and that was kind of the moment when he realized, I needed to make a change. And he alluded to that in the Winners' News Conference after the fact and said he was so stubborn for so long and that he feels he has underachieved as a professional golfer, particularly in the last decade. I mean, really, let's make it 15 years. I mean, he won his major in 2009. That he has underachieved because he has been so stubborn in trying to figure out putting. And that he's always worked on trying to figure out how to putt the traditional way with the standard length flat stick, answer style putter, and it just wasn't working. And it was clearly not working. And he mentioned again and again kind of how he just scraped by, just trying to get putts in the hole with any trick that he had in the book. And instead, finally one day accepted, look, this isn't working. I need to do something different. Embrace something different. He found a lab golf putter. Shout out to Sam Hahn and the gang there. If you want to listen to a podcast I've done with Sam earlier this year, we talked for about 45 minutes about the lab golf putters, putting in general, data about putting. Really incredible podcast. Promoted heavily because it was one of my favorite conversations I've had this year about golf. And you can listen to that over at golfnewsnetradio.com. You can subscribe to all of our podcasts there. That you can listen to the Bagroom podcast that has that. You can search that as well on every podcast service if you're interested. But that putter, the Lab Golf Mez, changed his life, changed his career. Went to the long putter, has found something that works. I mean, the kinds of putts that he made, the situational putts that he made up, never mind like the feet of putts or anything like that, but just situational putts that he made yesterday were incredible. I mean, 17 got up and down after a terrible drive, snap hook drive, puts himself in bad position, 60 yards short of the green with a layup, gets it to 12 feet, right in the jar. And that's after Patrick Cantlay had taken the lead, got into the clubhouse on 15 under, and then Glover goes in birdie 16, probably should have eagled it, but came 6 inches from eagling the hole, then saves his par, pars 18, gets to a playoff with Cantlay. Cantlay goes first because it's first in, first out now in the playoffs. There's no numbers out of hats. He puts it in the water. Glover puts it in prime real estate, perfect position. Cantlay can't get up and down after dropping from the hazard, although they had a very similar putt. Cantlay got a free read on the par putt that he would have had. Winds up staying right, misses the hole. And Lucas Glover is a 2-time PGA Tour winner in the last 2 weeks. And if you put that together in terms of financially, that's a $5 million windfall, basically. Not quite $5 million, but very close to $5 million for Lucas Glover. And then you look at the bonus he's guaranteed getting into the Tour Championship, the guaranteed payday he's going to get this week. This is about a $6 million windfall over 2 weeks worth of play. And then including whatever happens next week at a minimum for Lucas Glover. A guy who said when he won at the Wyndham that he was playing so much on the road and he kind of turned into an absentee father in some ways because of his profession. That he couldn't make his own schedule. He couldn't stay at home as much as he would want to see his children's sports games and things that they're doing and investing in their lives because he wasn't playing well. Now he's got $6 million. And I know we have talked about this so many times in the course of the last year and change on this podcast about money and the funny money, the influence of money. But it's very fascinating to me to see someone on the different end of that. A guy that didn't already have a ton of, I mean, he's had a very successful PGA Tour career, don't get me wrong. But plenty of lean years too. And now with this huge injection of cash into the sport, he has an opportunity to make money that will set him for the rest of his life solely on the basis of 4 weeks. That is a net positive, I think. is one of the few times this year we've talked about a player who isn't in the upper echelon, isn't one of those players who got together at the BMW Championship a year ago and reformed the tour as they know it. He is one of the guys who has said, maybe the playoffs are kind of messed up now that the top 125 doesn't get in. That maybe the journeyman, the rank and file, whatever name, pejorative descriptor you want to attach to it, that player is worse off because of what has happened because of LIV Golf and its impact on the reshaping of the PGA Tour. Well, now he is a beneficiary of that, and we haven't seen a whole lot of those this year. We've maybe seen a couple. Kurt Kitayama won a designated event when he won it at Bay Hill. That was a windfall for his life, $3.6 million, right? But this is maybe a different scale for Lucas Glover, who's now 30th in the world, got a good chance to be on the Ryder Cup team, assuming he doesn't fall apart the next 2 weeks. You would think he's got a good chance. He could be a good pair with Brian Harman, who probably isn't on the same wavelength as some of the guys that are going to be on this team. Kind of needs a good old boy kind of partner, I think, that he'll jive with. And Lucas Glover could be that guy. Wyndham Clark could be too, by the way, but needs a partner. And that's incredible. That is one of those net positive stories that we really haven't had a whole lot of this year, where it's been, okay, well, this guy took all this money and we don't even know why he got paid that much to go to LIV. I can think of a whole bunch of different players that fall under that category. And you've got Lucas Glover here who considered signing with LIV and instead stuck with the PGA Tour, stuck it out, now getting that payoff because he decided to embrace change, throw away his stubborn ways, and embrace a different style of putting. It's pretty wild. So I think the lesson for all of us is, as golfers, there are probably so many of us who don't putt well because we've just stuck to one way of putting. We've had the same putter, or we like a face balance putter. Well, maybe we're better off one with a little bit of toe hang, or maybe we need to change our stroke. Maybe we need a longer putter. Maybe we need a shorter putter. Maybe we need a different looking putter, a different style of putter. And so many people are not willing to make that change because they're afraid, or they're stubborn, or they're convinced that they can just figure it out. Some people can't. Sometimes equipment is the answer. It's not always the answer, but it can be an answer. And Lucas Glover embracing that has meant the world to his career. Saved it, frankly. So shout out to him for doing that. I do have the interesting distinction of beating him in a chipping contest about 13 years ago. We were at a USGA Amex event at Trump National Bedminster, actually in New Jersey. It sleeted that day, and freezing sleet. And we were playing, and you had different stations. You had Morgan Pressel at one of the holes for the closest to the pin contest, and then you had a chipping contest with Lucas Glover. I beat Lucas Glover in the chipping contest. So I've beaten a PGA Tour professional at something. I would definitely never beat him at anything else, but I beat him at a chipping contest. Seemed like a great guy. Seems very, very positive response from his peers about the win. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about the scheduling for next year. So let's put it all into context because we have the DP World Tour schedule that came out today. We'll touch on that right now because it's today's news, and then we'll kind of stitch all that in the PGA Tour schedule. So DP World Tour schedule came out for next year, starts in November. November to November is how the season's going to run. And there are some pretty significant changes in the way everything kind of stacks up. And I think this is a pretty smart move from the DP World Tour, really with the influence of the PGA Tour, because eventually the DP World Tour will be absorbed by the PGA Tour, and it's all going to have to work together somehow. I think that this is their way of trying to do that. So, at least their first pass. What's going to happen on the DP World Tour schedule? It's going to start in November, and they're going to have what they're going to call 5 different swing segments of the season, the first part of their season. So those events are going to be 5 and 6 tournaments, more or less, and they're going to go through different parts of the world. So you're going to kind of have your Middle East and North Africa swing. You're going to have a little bit of a European swing. You're going to have an Asian swing. You're going to have kind of classic events swing is what they're kind of calling it. And all these different swings, the 5 of them, will have their own bonus pools. So if you earn the most Race to Dubai points in that segment of the season, excluding any majors, majors won't count to this, but excluding the majors for that segment, you're going to win $200,000 from a $1 million bonus pool. So there's going to be money available basically every 2 months to a top player based on how they played during a stretch of golf. Now, I think that's kind of interesting for a couple different reasons. One, it might be an opportunity to poach players from the Asian Tour, because the Asian Tour obviously has seen the investment from the Saudi Public Investment Fund. They've committed to the International Series. Well, they've got similar purse sizes, but now you've got this lure of a bonus pool. So staying on the tour, playing more, there's some benefit to that, especially if you can win a couple $100,000 every few weeks if you play more consistently than the other players in that swing. So that's something. That's a bone also thrown to the Sunshine Tour, because the South African events are going to be included in a couple different parts of this. So that's going to be more money for some potential Sunshine Tour players who could earn or have their membership enhanced by getting some of this bonus money. Then the second stage is going to be kind of a run of national opens and top tier events, historical events that have been important to the DP World Tour. They've all kind of been shifted to the fall. So most of them are in Europe. BMW PGA Championship, British Masters, Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, bunch of them. There's like 7. They're all going to come together, and then that's going to kind of be the early fall. So they're all staged after the FedEx Cup playoffs. Done by design, right? Because so many of the top players are going to be on the PGA Tour. They're going to want to compete in August for the FedEx Cup. And then they might look for a place to play golf. FedEx Cup fall is going to be its own thing. Maybe you don't want to deal with that. Maybe you don't want to play in those fields. Maybe you want to go back home, or maybe you want to just assure your commitment to the DP World Tour for Ryder Cup purposes or whatever reason. Now you can go play those tournaments, and you're going to have them all in a row, be nice and convenient. You don't have to break up your PGA Tour schedule. You have it all kind of there at one time. That makes sense. That's a good idea. And then the final stage of the season is what they're going to call their Race to Dubai playoffs. And they kind of had this before. They used to be 4 events, then became 3 events. Now it's 2 events, although it's not really formalized these days. And what's going to happen is the Sun City tournament, the Nedbank Golf Challenge, will actually move away from being one of these 2 tournaments as it has been in recent memory. It's going to be in the early part of the season. So they're going to have that in December. And then they're going to move the Abu Dhabi Championship, which is apparently no longer sponsored by HSBC. That'll be the first playoff event, top 70 available players. And then they'll cut to a top 50. Top 50 will be available to play in the DP World Tour Championship Dubai. $10 million purse, $6 million bonus pool. And I'm assuming they're going to find a sponsor for the Abu Dhabi tournament. It'll be similarly, $8-9 million, somewhere in that range for the purse. This all kind of makes sense. Dovetails in with the cadence of the PGA Tour schedule, makes them compete less often. When they do work together, it'll be these opposite field events during major championship season, particularly during the swing overseas, where you have the Scottish Open and the Open Championship. They'll work together. That all sounds very good to me. I think it all makes good, clean sense. The important thing, too, is that you'll be able to have players potentially from the top 70 on the PGA Tour that qualify for the playoffs will have an opportunity to compete in these events on the DP World Tour. So they're hoping to get some PGA Tour players who already have an assured status, who maybe don't want to pollute some of the events in the FedEx Cup fall, and they want to compete. They're going to do on the DP World Tour. That's what they're hoping. That's what they hope the carrot is. Meanwhile, you've got the PGA Tour schedule. You've got 8 different signature events next year. We did get pretty much what we expected, right? We got the AT&T Pebble Beach event becoming a FedEx or a signature event. We got Phoenix out. Now it's sandwiched between Pebble Beach and Riviera. We've got Memorial. We've got Arnold Palmer. We've got Heritage. We've got Travelers. We've got Wells Fargo. Basically the same cast of characters with that minor change. And everything else is pretty much set up the same. We've got a couple events moving from the fall into the spring. So we thought there was going to be the CJ Cup honoring Byron Nelson as reported by Golf Week. That turned out not to be the case. AT&T decided to step in and save that sponsorship. So we're not sure what's happening with CJ Cup yet or what that's going to look like. Then we've got the Houston Open moving back into that March time frame to kind of set up the Masters. So it'd be good to have that back in the fall or from the fall into the spring. And pretty much otherwise what we kind of figured was going to happen is going to happen. So we're still going to get a sponsor for the erstwhile Honda Classic. That's still going to be on the schedule. Other than that, we're going to need a new opposite field event to take the Barbasol's place. That's out. Barbasol's done. So we don't know what that's going to be or where it's going to be. But pretty much otherwise the same. So now we've got a pretty coherent stitching between 2 tour schedules for what they want to have moving forward. Now the PGA Tour, again, is going to absorb this. We don't know what LIV's going to look like. We assume LIV will be around next year. We have not heard that schedule yet. We assume it'll be similarly 14 events. Saudis change their minds. We also don't really know where we are in the process with that negotiation between the PGA Tour and the Public Investment Fund. We will talk about that on tomorrow's show. I already have that topic planned out because I want to talk about player confidence in Jay Monahan, what's happening in the negotiation, and what might be happening next that could be threats to this agreement, not only from the new board seat in Tiger Woods, which we haven't talked about yet, but also maybe players and staff not particularly feeling the greatest about the situation. So talk about that tomorrow. But wanted to get everything from the weekend talked about today, a little bit about the news of the day with the scheduling stuff, and then we'll catch up a little bit tomorrow on an in-depth topic on some things that have happened the last couple of weeks. Thank you so much for watching the show or listening to the program. If you catch us as a podcast on a platform that lets you do so, please leave a 5-star review. It helps us reach more people. If you're watching on a video version of this show, particularly on YouTube, smash the like button, consider subscribing to our channel. We appreciate that. And if you're catching us through some other platform, GNN Radio, another podcast platform, our friends at STN, whatever way you're catching us, thanks for making us part of your day in some fashion. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. I'm Ryan Ballingy. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time on 2 Off the First.